In January 2016, the Kenyan government announced that the country was at war with its mafia-like criminal cartels, run by politicians and business people. According to Kenya's Chief Justice, 80% of the country's political leaders are not fit to hold office, and that corruption is at an all-time high. So we wanted to know, just how corrupt is Kenya? Well, Kenya has dealt with corruption since its first president, Jomo Kenyatta, took office in 1964. At the time, the country had just gained independence from Britain, and European settlers had left much of Kenya's land unclaimed. Kenyatta became massively wealthy by purchasing most of this land while it was cheap and later profiting off of business ventures on that land. To this day, many Kenyans still credit Kenyatta's regime for creating a culture of wealth accumulation by way of corruption among public officials. A half-century later, Kenya is still dealing with corruption in the public sector. Many of Kenya's politicians and public officials are allegedly tied to organized crime gangs and profit from migrant trafficking, weapons, drugs, and counterfeiting. Additionally, an official audit in 2015 showed that only 1% of Kenya's $16 billion budget was used lawfully, and roughly a quarter of that budget had gone missing altogether. Much of Kenya's government corruption is a result of bribes, which are generally small but paid frequently. The average urban Kenyan pays 16 bribes per month, typically to policemen or bureaucrats. In fact, Kenyans say that roughly 2 out of 3 of their interactions with public officials result in a bribe, or a negative consequence if they decline to bribe. Kenya's police force is by far the most corrupt of any private or public institution. Police allegedly collect most of their bribes from routine traffic stops, and it's not uncommon for higher-ups in law enforcement to give their officers a minimum quota for bribes. Much of the money ends up in the hands of police chiefs rather than officers. Kenyan police are particularly susceptible to bribes because they're very poorly paid. And despite efforts to tackle the issue, corruption has only gotten worse since the current president took office in 2013. In just 1 year, Kenya dropped 9 spots on the Corruption Perception Index, bringing it alongside countries like Bangladesh and Guinea. Kenya's president has repeatedly promised to combat government fraud. However, his own administration has been called the most corrupt in the country's history. But efforts are being made to combat that corruption. In 2015, the United States pledged more than $1 million to set up an investigation unit to uncover government fraud. Anti-corruption campaigns are now taught in public schools and broadcast over the radio, and Kenyan artists have taken to the streets to voice their frustrations with anti-corruption graffiti and murals. Still, there is considerable work to be done. According to Kenya's Chief Justice, the connection between cartels and politicians must be broken before the country sees any lasting improvement. But while Kenya deals with corruption, it's still an important force in the African Union. To learn about just how powerful Kenya really is, check out this video.
Size-wise, Kenya is not all that large. At about 225,000 square miles, it's not only the world's 49th largest country, but it is actually just a bit smaller than Texas. However, comparatively, Kenya has the 7th largest population in Africa. There are nearly 45 million people, even when accounting for the region's higher mortality rate and widespread AIDS crisis.
Thanks for watching TestTube News. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos every day.